For CuyEast Chamber of Commerce, I'm Wayne Lawrence. Is owning your own business a blessing or a curse? We're going to find out today. I've got Adam Gordon here from Tendon Manufacturing. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you, Wayne. It's good to be here.
Good. So manufacturing, we haven't had very many manufacturers on the podcast, so I'm really excited about kind of getting into that, especially because manufacturing has always been the backbone of American industry with job growth and those type of things. So tell me a little bit about what you do. I know you deal with fabricating sheet metal rolls, right? So what else?
Yeah, so we do sheet metal fabrication, general machining, you know, nothing that, not to the level of aerospace and stuff like that, but, general machining with, not tight specs. We have our coat lines. We do silk screen, welding, PEM insertion, stuff like that. And we really, in the last, I would say, since 2020, we started doing major assemblies for customers as well. So
really? Okay.
We'll make the metal components, and then we, start to do the, nuts and bolts of it as well.
So what brought you into that new line? Did you just see a natural extension? Customers asking you for that? Yeah.
It was a natural one because, because of what we do, and we have so many diverse clientele, because 2020, you had a lot of industries fall off.
Yeah.
In the retail, one of our customers is a spray tan booth manufacturer, so nobody's getting spray tans with a shutdown.
Yeah.
So we were building air purifying units in 2020. So, we already had them. It was at a smaller scale. We were making the, metal components, and then we just, ramped up, took over a unit next door and did the electric assembly for that as well.
Okay.
So.
How long have you guys been around?
So we've been in the area since 94. We've been in business since 88.
Okay.
Yeah.
Area meaning greater Cleveland area, or were you out of state?
So we started downtown in 1988 and then moved to our current home on Aurora Road in Warrensville Heights in 94.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. So I know you're involved with the CuyEast Chamber of Commerce, and thank you very much for your involvement, and especially being a localized business here in Warrensville Heights in Cuyahoga County. Are there any other associations or organizations that you're involved with as a company or you personally?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely appreciate being a member. I think it's a great, networking opportunity, and we had the opportunity to go to Cleveland Food Bank through the chamber, which was awesome. Had some employees, also work there, and then so we do partner with some high schools. We partner with Magnet and AWT. We're a member of the Ohio Manufacturers Association, which, they're such a helpful tool when it comes to, different workers' comp policies and OSHA things that you need to follow. So just to name a few.
Well, and then you said also with Magnet, so that's training opportunities where those young companies are coming to you to understand about manufacturing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But you also work with vocational programs as well, too, because, that's really, if you can have someone coming out of school who may choose not to go into college or choose to go to a different career to walk into a company like yours and develop with you, that's almost like golden.
It's
really
awesome.
is. Yeah, it really is. So.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because a lot of them, they want to be in the bigger scale welding or machining. So we're a great stepping stone to, just get the basic skills you need. And then, if you could stay with us, lovely. If not, best of luck. We'll be here. So
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I understand that you and your brother are both part owners of the company.
Yes.
And you've got Dad there, huh?
We do. We have Dad there.
So explain how, or kind of put that together in terms of ownership of the company.
Yeah. So, my dad is definitely, he's still the majority owner. He comes in, like I said before, he was like, when the weather's nice, you might see him less. But he's just been that guiding hand. He lets us run with the day-to-day. But, he's still keeping the big picture numbers, keeping us in check. And, he's a huge proponent of cash flow and making sure you're chasing the invoices and stuff like that. So it's definitely great, most days.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And I'm going to agree with your dad, because as we get older, we feel really good about how we've earned the opportunity to go out on nice days.
Well, there's a lot of,
when it's raining, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of time my mom's like, you need to take them. You need to bring them in here. Yeah.
And then, so it's your dad, and the company was started by your dad and another individual, correct? Is he still involved?
Yeah. So he started it with Greg Tench, so that's where they got the name Tendon. So they converted Tench and Gordon to make
good.
Tendon. So yeah, they started and they made their connection at the old Warner and Swayze. So my dad was in sales and Greg was in the production side. So that's kind of how they formed that bond. When everybody got laid off there, they went their separate ways professionally, but they kind of always had the pipe dream of where we are now, which is cool. Yeah, and Greg's son is our lead engineer.
Okay,
so,
good.
Yeah.
So family across the whole. Anybody else involved that's family in the business?
So we recently just added a brother-in-law. So
Okay.
we like to give. He's married to our sister, so we like to give him the grunt work. He's new though, so you got to.
All right.
Yeah.
So just speaking of work in general, so what are your primary responsibilities there?
I handle the larger scale purchasing and a lot of the operations. So from that, it's really with the operations you're tied into, major account management, because a lot of customers will call and say, "Hey, I want this expedited," or we're running late on shipments, so we need to prioritize and try to get lean in that respect.
Okay.
And also looking to vendors to potentially sub some things out if we're getting under the wire there.
And how many other employees support you in that company? How many employees do you guys have?
So we have a total of 85 employees.
85.
Yeah.
Good sized company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Across 3 shifts. Yeah.
Okay. Union and non-union?
Non-union.
Non-union.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I got to ask the question now.
Yes.
All right, here it comes.
Okay.
I know you've been thinking about it all day.
Yeah.
So, is owning your own business, and I guess this would be for you and your family too, has it been a blessing or a curse?
Absolutely a blessing.
Okay.
When you think of just the opportunities it's created, the relationships that you've formed because of it. I know nothing else. The company's been around since I've been alive. I think, if you were to ask my dad, it would be a different question. I think he still would say blessing. But, during those recession years and just the different, turbulence he had to endure.
Yeah.
But still, I bet you, if you ask him in that moment, he's probably like, oh, let me go somewhere else.
Well, and just let's talk about this time period right now. So we have inflation.
Yeah.
We have higher interest rates. Hopefully they'll come down soon.
Yeah. Yes.
Soon after this podcast. How is that affecting your business? I mean, you're buying raw materials, you're holding receivables, you're trying to get the right price points. I think I was sharing with you earlier today that, here I am. I just got a letter from my manufacturer. I'm a moving company saying that the prices of boxes are going up because pulp went up. So, we always have to manage that. How do you manage through it, and has that been a challenge for you?
It definitely has been a challenge, and I think that's the curse part of a smaller business as opposed to a larger business, because, they get to eat first and, we'll get the scraps. So when you're doing these spot buys, a lot of vendors might be like, hey, what have you done for me lately? Okay. There was more inconsistency in the sheet metal side. I would say, what was that? Like 2021, where, we were paying, it was like even Steven, it was always 45 cents a pound for steel. Then it got as high as $2. I think the biggest issue in that was reflecting that in our costs for our existing customers, because we did have a lot of parts that repeat and we didn't have to revisit. And then all of a sudden you're like, material is quadruple what it costs. Yeah. So definitely, not my favorite challenge to overcome.
And I think a lot of businesses really face that too, especially during that COVID period of time where costs went up and product costs went up tremendously. And then you have to make the decision, do I pass along all those costs to my customers? Some of it, do I eat it? And you got to look at the vibrancy and health of your company to make that decision. So those are tough. And sometimes you feel like you're never going to come out on the other end, but eventually, hopefully, if you do the right things, you do come out on the end. So how were you able to kind of get through that period of time?
We got cute with things. So, we were definitely being like, because we cut everything out of sheet metal. We were trying our best to get every, inch out of that sheet for different jobs and different things, consolidating setup time and different things like that. And then we were being very transparent with customers. We're telling them, hey, this is what we're seeing. Here's a better option for you. Especially one of our biggest issues was powder coat. There's a lot of chemicals and different things that are above my, understanding, that they're like, hey, this went up. We have a surcharge for the pigment that comes into white powder. So that's when you talk to the customer, say, hey, can we have an alternate? Can you get this? If it's an internal part, does it really matter what color it is?
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff that we have in house. So that's part of it. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have skilled or unskilled workers?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. You do have, you still have a lot of people from a generation of, hey, their dad had a machine shop basically in their garage. And so you have those type of employees that you obviously, from a production standpoint, you just value, but then you're seeking out the people who have that ability to be a mentor. So we have employees that have, run a press brake for 60 years. So then you have them training a blueprint reading class for candidates that you kind of see, hey, this is an employee that comes to work on time every day, works overtime when asked, just always has positive body language, positive, speech, and I'm not walking by and seeing them on their phones, so, you just really, those invaluables you look for, and then you're like, let's find a way to train them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So has it been a challenge to find employees and to retain them, especially in the market now, the way it is?
Yeah. We were running into that. We're perfectly, I would say, knock on wood, we are perfectly employed at the moment for our capacity.
Good for you.
But it was definitely a struggle to find, employees. But we worked with a lot of local charities, for people who were looking to work. I'm pretty involved in the interviewing process, and being involved with that, you kind of pick up the personality of the person you're talking to and say, hey, like, there's definitely potential here. So no, we've been very fortunate in that respect, and retention, we don't really lose a lot. We work with local high schools, and they'll have a lot of vocational programs. And we'll be honest with the kids. We're like, hey, if you're going to join a higher paying job, let us be a stepping stone. That's fine. We'll teach you. And then, if you need to miss work for an interview and if you don't hear back, we'll be here. So,
good. And that's a good way to, the retention part of it in terms of pairing up those who are very seasoned with those who are new, that's got to go a long way. But there also has to be some level of innovation that occurs over the course of time. So how are you managing innovation? I mean, where are you going out to get new ideas in order to just decrease your shrinkage and do all those things? Yep.
A lot of it is talking to vendors, kind of seeing what they're seeing, asking what they're seeing. We did just start some automation. We have a cobot for our welder. So, a welding arm, which will do, will churn out a lot.
And by the way, I know what that is because we had someone else on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I feel good about that. Yes. Heard this again.
I know, it's like a cobot, a robot. And I'm like,
I know exactly what a cobot is.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like this, basically, it moves around. Yeah.
Right.
You probably know more than I do about it.
No, I don't think so.
I just watch it from a distance.
Right.
Like, this is, futuristic.
But you're utilizing that. And that's an investment every time you bring or every time you get another one in.
Yeah.
Your automation. Yeah.
And I mean that comes with its concerns too, because you're like, it's something that's unfamiliar to us. So then we have to get at least one person familiar with it, and then they have to train a whole, group of people,
right.
So that familiarity takes some time. For sure.
And how many shifts are you running with those employees?
So we have 3 shifts.
You're running 3 shifts?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very skeleton crew on that third shift.
Yeah.
It's mainly employees that have been around forever that, and we're fortunate, to have. So,
good. So, invite me to that dinner table for Thanksgiving. You got the family with everybody involved, including, including the brother-in-law now who's involved. What's that like? I mean, are you always taking business home? Does your family talk about it? How do you manage that dynamics?
There's some avoidance for sure. There's definitely some avoidance.
They go to a different room.
Sometimes there's telling mom like, "Hey,"
That is great.
yeah. But no, I mean it's one of those things.
Funny.
Yeah, like I've had that conversation with my dad, and it's just you got to keep things separate.
Sure,
And,
right.
The person I sought out
Yeah.
when we first started was our engineer Tom, who basically was there when the company started with his dad, who started the company with my dad. And I was like, how did you not let this, come to blows? He's like, as soon as I'm at that light, I just have to wipe it out.
Sure, right.
As soon as I'm at that light driving home. And so that's what you try to do.
Okay.
So.
All right. Do you have a sense of, with your dad being in business so long, and I'm sure, as you said, he got in the trenches and he forged through and just got through some good and bad times. Now a younger generation comes along.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I mean, do you find yourself worried? Are you just happy that you have your dad and others involved now to provide guidance? Where do you turn to get answers, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the questions you're asking.
Okay.
So obviously a lot of, the managerial accounting side and sometimes like employee relations. I'm like, hey, this is probably not as unique of a situation as it seems.
Yeah.
What did you do? Can you think of a time when this happened? So he's great in that respect.
Okay.
For sure. So my dad is my main resource for that. Okay. And then a lot of the technical stuff, we have engineers that have run every machine out there.
Yeah.
So, so you try to, lean on them to troubleshoot. How do we get this part out the door?
So you were a teacher prior,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So were you able to take those skills and bring that to work? Because when you think about it, you're always training, trying to communicate information to other people in an articulate fashion. Has that helped you because you were a teacher?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it kindergartners or anything?
yeah. So it was second grade. So I mean, yeah,
it directly translates, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, honestly, being a parent of a 3-year-old right now is the same thing. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I always thought about what my professor said at Ohio State. She was like, everyone says teachers need to be patient. Like there's this key of being patient. She's like, that's kind of a myth. You could be patient, but then you also have to be a little stubborn and you have to push things through the door and stay on things.
Okay.
So whether that is, getting math tests done or getting parts out the door, getting powder coated.
Exactly.
You have to be a little bit of that bug in people's ears. So
let's jump back to manufacturing a little bit. Do you export?
not a lot. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
But your competition, you're American-made company, manufacturer, which is great. But you've got competition from China, Mexico, other surrounding areas. What's that like? How do you manage through that? I mean, how do you keep the American-made brand just in the forefront of what you do and how you sell to customers?
I think a benefit is because, we did lose quite a lot of business, to China.
Yeah.
So we did have to pivot, and we were, look within where are we offering, what markets haven't we tapped, and there are a lot of manufacturers that they'll send you the print. They're like, I need this next week, so you're not going to get that from China or Mexico. Like they need it, right away. And also when it comes to going overseas. When they run into quality issues, if you run into a quality issue, that could stop a line for a month or so. So, we definitely run into that.
Okay.
But I've run into that issue because we have to get a lot of extrusion and stuff and different materials from China, and having to wait on that is already
throws off everything.
Exactly.
You got your shifts, you got everything going.
Yeah, and you're never you don't have the customer service.
Right.
So when you're so dependent and you have a timeline, it's pretty easy to
So I'm gonna put a feather in your company's cap anyway because there was a sitting vice president. I don't like to get into politics on this. That actually visited your facility and held it up as an example of an American manufacturer. That was cool.
Yes.
I remember when it happened, and I went back and did some research and saw it again. So how did you feel? How did the employees feel about just being a part of that?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool because, even you're like Facebook friends with some employees, they still have their profile picture with the vice president.
Right.
And to be put on that, I agree with you, wherever you stand in the political spectrum, it's a vice president.
Yeah.
So, I just remember just having immense pride for you almost get weepy. You're like,
Sure. Yeah.
did my dad and my uncle ever think like, wow,
Yeah.
when you get
It
together,
really is. It's fascinating.
and it's a testament to, their hard work and the hard work that, we're continuing to put out, and it is great. I mean, it was one of those things where you just had so much pride,
Okay.
and it's something we already knew though, it's an affirmation for sure, but it's definitely something, something cool.
So, so with you and your brother, is there a definitive succession plan put together with timelines, or is it just being kind of worked organically as you guys start to grow into the business?
Yeah, it's definitely organic. You
Okay.
know, I don't think my dad will ever want to fully retire,
Sure.
and I don't think we ever want him to retire. But it is one of those things where there will be a board set up because my brother and I are 2 of 5 siblings, so we also have them to consider and stuff
Right.
like that. So
Okay.
there is a succession plan worked through the fun stuff with lawyers
Right.
and
Yeah. Well,
and
you have to.
You have to, yeah.
You have to. And the good thing is that you do have that already in mind versus some people when they get towards retirement age and it's like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And that's an awful position to be in. Does it not concern you? And I don't want to make you afraid, but knowing that those reins eventually, in a sense, as you continue to grow, you'll get more and more responsibility. How do you feel about that?
It's definitely daunting.
Yeah.
But you've gotten a taste for so many things, and I think definitely credit to my dad is it's the same way he raised us. It's very sink or swim. I think he's got confidence in us. And then, he's more of a reactive manager when it comes to things like, kind of like that dad slap you on the back of the head. Like, what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, it's definitely, it's one of those things where you don't know until you know.
Right, exactly.
Dealing with the different, the taxes and the workers' comp stuff and all that, like definitely.
So anyone who's thinking about, there's family businesses and they're varying sizes from one person operation through, I guess 100 or 1,000 of them. For anyone thinking about getting involved in their family business, but they're a little bit hesitant because of maybe their family relationships and, they intertwine a little bit, but as you say, you got to kind of separate them at times. What advice do you give that person who's listening to this and watching and say,
run? No,
no,
go
to mom. If you got a question, go to mom.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. No, it's hard. It's definitely you just have to don't take things personally. I think that's a good thing for small businesses in general because I think when I first started, if an employee was ragging on how the company was run or if a customer, drops you and says nasty things, you're just like, you think that's a reflection of you and your family and you get defensive, but you definitely have to have thicker skin. I think just come at it like a student.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And then, so let's talk a little bit about finances, not getting into the finance of the company, of course, but we talked about the challenges of different times during COVID and, prices changing and those type of things. Well, with that came receivables got a lot longer.
Yes.
A lot longer.
Yes.
How did you guys manage through that, and how do you even still manage through it as we take a look at, interest rates and whether or not you make another investment in a cobot and those type of things?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we definitely look to the industry when it comes to capital purchases. We say, what kind of trends are we seeing? What type of automation or what type of technology is out there that, fits us? So, from that aspect, that's kind of what we see. But as far as like material planning and seeing, we have some major movers as far as types of steel, types of aluminum that we use that you're like, okay, like let's make sure we have safety stock.
Sure, right. You can do a buy on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, other than that, then you're just, as soon as that purchase order comes in for, from a customer and you're like, that uses something special. I got to make sure I get the right lead time from my vendor.
Right.
And then relay it to the customer.
Yeah.
Hey, typically our 3-week lead time, you're telling me, like sometimes you were getting like 16-week lead times for certain things. And I'm like, what am I supposed to say? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Geez.
Yeah. Price that out, with all the changes and stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
So one final question. So you said it's a blessing, and then we talked about some things that are challenges, not a curse.
Yeah.
What is the biggest blessing of owning a business or being part of your business right now? I mean, when you think back, or even when you leave today, you go, wow, that's really cool. What are you going to point to?
I love the sense of community you build, the relationship you build with employees, especially, and being able to help there. So, I mean, that's obviously, number one. I love the idea that, my niece's nephew's son could one day be working here, because I worked part-time as a kid in high school and college. So, those things. And then, I mean, it's just very nice to have the freedom, just being able to come here today, if I'm working for somebody, they're like, no.
Oh, good.
So just being able to come out and do stuff like this or go to job fairs or go to, different demos and seeing stuff like that. And just being in the world of manufacturing and talking to different people is just awesome.
Well said. And I think those who are listening and watching are going to, take that to heart and maybe even make decisions to get in business themselves. So, Adam, thank you very much for coming on our podcast. Really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your experience.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you.
Hey, if you like this episode, don't forget to comment, like, and share.
This podcast was made possible with the support of our sponsors. Find more ways to grow at CuyEast.org.